Hello, friends and beautiful people. Hey, hey, hey. It is Kathryn Massell, 5D Visionary Elevated Consciousness Coach. A little bit late today. Got a late client call, and we don't wrap up when the hour is done. We wrap up when the work is done. So it took a little bit longer today. So apologies, those who've been waiting. Say hello, let me know you're here. We are here in Monday Masterclass. Monday Masterclass returns with me, Kathryn Massell, Elevated Consciousness Coach, 5D Visionary, Timeline Healer, Time Bender. We're talking today, Tammy! Hello, my love, my neighbor. Just down the way from where I live. Today we're going to talk about Distractor and Disruptor Timelines. What are they? How do they function? Why are they there? How do they work against our quest to ascend into unity consciousness? And how can we work with this energetic potential to create a new paradigm for the new earth and create the new earth timeline that it's already here. We just haven't anchored it, haven't learned how to anchor it yet. Hey, Corinne. So for those of you who do not know, I teach a pretty comprehensive and spiritually advanced program, and it is called Timelines Expanded Masterclass. And I teach it about once or twice a year live, depending on what the year holds. And I'm going to be teaching it again on January 11th. So 1/11/2022, we are starting the next live round of this 12-module deep dive, powerful, profound, unique, one-of-a-kind Timelines Expanded Masterclass program. So in this, we talk about something that is very, very important to understand. We talk about the process of ascension, meaning moving into elevated consciousness, stepping up like it's on a ladder, like it's an evolution into spiritually elevated levels of consciousness, okay? To claim our birthright, in other words, which is to evolve into higher states of being, into a light body status, which means that we are holding more light. We are holding more information about who we truly are, okay? You might hold a lot of information right now, but a lot of that is wrapped up in the false ascension matrix, false timelines. Hi, Sarah! Sarah's joining us for the next live round of Timelines Expanded. I'm super excited to teach it. I can't wait. And what a great time to teach it, because we are really at this tipping point. This major paradigm shift is happening where a lot of the old structures, paradigms, belief systems, they're all breaking down. A lot of things that held our belief systems, our ways of being, our ways of interacting and exchanging with each other, a lot of these old systems are breaking down. A lot of these old ways that we used to define ourselves are breaking down. And these were not necessarily the most wholesome ways of being for ourselves and for the collective of humanity. And so while it's a painful process, the breakdown and moving into elevated stations of awareness is not unicorns and rainbows, people. And so that is why I refuse to talk about ascension. I refuse to talk about elevating consciousness. I refuse to talk about accessing elevated states of awareness that move us up, step us up the ladder into higher levels of being, higher levels of awareness. I refuse to talk about that without talking about false ascension, because we cannot leave this out. And I feel like it is a major deficit in talking about spirituality and talking about ascending into 5D reality and higher dimensional realities beyond that. It has left a gaping hole and void in the conversation around ascension to not talk about the false ascension matrix and to not talk about false timelines, to not talk about the perceived rigid and fixed nature of 3D time-space. It is actually a lot more malleable, a lot more elastic than you've been previously led to believe. And one of the things that I'm passionate about sharing and about teaching, and especially with Timelines Expanded Masterclass, is illuminating this part of the conversation that has been a huge deficit for us who are on a spiritual quest to move into elevated stations of awareness, to talk about this, to highlight what false timelines are, how they function, who's behind false timelines, how they work, how we get wrapped up in consciousness loops and consciousness traps as a result of playing with the contrast of false timelines like divide and conquer timelines, like distractor and disruptor timelines. These are considered artificial machinery, meaning they are mechanisms that keep us in consciousness loops, that allow us to stay in the same density of awareness. We don't realize the fullness and the wholesomeness of who we truly are, living at the level of our spiritual truth, meaning living at the level of our God self-expression, an aspect of being, living in our master aspect of being. You might hear me talk about this a lot. I teach a lot of programs and I share a lot of live talks and a lot of free content around this particular subject. That the New Earth timeline and what is here, the New Earth timeline is here. We just haven't fully anchored it yet because it takes a tipping point of mass consciousness to anchor a new timeline. So the New Earth timeline, it's not like some lofty thing that we're, some nebulous, esoteric thing that like we're constantly reaching for and striving for. I mean, it is in a sense, because we haven't fully grounded it into our everyday waking reality. And we haven't realized that we can fully opt out or step out of or unhook from the illusion of 3D time-space. And when we do that, we're free and we're able to live at the level of the God self. We're able to live at the level of our master aspect, which was always part of our divine inherent birthright and aligns us with the true organic ascension timeline, the true organic timelines that keep us ascending wholesomely into elevated stations of awareness. Instead, we keep replaying and putting on repeat these consciousness loops that keep us in density, that keep us relegating our realms of thought, our belief systems, towards constructs that don't actually exist, towards constructs that are fabrications and parts of artificial machinery that feed false timelines and the false ascension matrix. Beliefs like lack, beliefs like poverty consciousness or impoverishment of any kind, believing that we are not inherently divine, believing that we don't have the power to create our reality. We are doing it every single fucking second. Every single second you're creating your reality by what you choose to believe and how you choose to act on those beliefs and those thought forms. So mechanisms like distractor and disruptor timelines, which are kind of offshoots under the umbrella of divide and conquer timelines, and that lives under the umbrella of the false ascension matrix. These are mechanisms that work to keep us in consciousness loops, that keep us distracted from who we truly are, from our spiritual truth that we are divine, that we are creator beings, that we are fully capable right now of creating a higher timeline and anchoring it for the planet, not just for ourselves, and that we're fully capable of opting into the belief, which is aligned with our spiritual truth, that when we live at the level, the highest level of our abundance and our prosperity, we're not just doing it for ourselves, we're doing it for the collective. Your abundance matters, and your abundance feeds a higher collective timeline, and it's really high time that we start believing this. And isn't it interesting that when you seem to be on a personal quest, let's just say for something that you are trying to achieve, something some success that you are after, okay? You want something in your life that is going to improve your overall quality of being and experiencing life. Okay, we're doing this daily through what we cast forth from our heart and our higher God self aspect, our desires. Our desires are a mechanism of the organic ascension matrix. Our desires are part of our organic spiritual truth and inherent divinity. They come directly from the divine. Your desires are that. Your desires are like breadcrumbs that lead you back to you and your divinity, you and your master aspect, you and your God self. Because there's a part of you that knows that when you fully act upon and claim your desires, and you are living inside of, alongside of your desires, meaning you're living in the most beneficial moment-to-moment outcomes that you're creating in your life, it doesn't just benefit you. Your abundance matters, and it benefits the entirety of mankind. Because when you are living at that level of fulfillment, of satisfaction, of constantly reaping more and more beneficial outcomes in your daily life, you are resonating a way of being from your heart. You're not living at the level of want and lack and impoverishment that are mental constructs that are just deductions that we make about the nature of reality because we've been living and interfacing with false timelines for so long. We actually believe in these false constructs and contracts, that a little bit of a Freudian slip, but not really, of lack, impoverishment, right? These are not real. They feel real, right? We've been interfacing with a lot of different feedback in our external environment that make it believable that these things are real, but in fact they are not. They're just more artificial machinery that feeds the false ascension matrix. And so those of you who are scratching your head and saying, well, what the heck is the false ascension matrix? Okay, so we live in, this is the quick and dirty explanation. We go way, way deeper and down the rabbit hole with this in Timelines Expanded Masterclass. So if this interests you, you're going to want to sign up for this masterclass, okay? But the quick and dirty explanation of the false ascension matrix is this. This entire 3D reality realm, okay, this time-space matrix of third-dimensional reality is a realm of polarity, contrast, and duality. From our soul level of being, meaning the higher self aspect of you, the God self aspect of you, your master aspect of you, those are all interchangeable, by the way. That aspect of you knows that you came here into this 3D density to play this game of contrast, polarity, and duality. Hi, Christine. And hello, everyone who's joining. I can't see everyone who's here. Heather's here. Hello, lady. How are ya? So, Sonia's here. Hello, everyone. So we knew this from our soul's divine aspect, and our soul's journey is rolled up in knowing exactly what we're playing with, okay? Because the soul desires certain experiences. The soul likes to play. At one point in time, your soul decided it was going to come down into 3D density and play this game that is what I call the Great Earth Experiment. I wrote a whole book about it. Unity, Consciousness, and the Great Earth Experiment of Spiritual Awakening. If you don't know that book, let me know. I'll tag you in here and you can buy it for $10. So we knew this. We knew we were coming down to play on this giant playground and this giant role play that we call the Great Earth Experiment of planet Earth at this particular auspicious time in Earth's history. We knew we were coming here. And we knew we were going to play with duality, polarity, and contrast. We knew that this is what is the makeup of this 3D reality realm. It is a place to taste all the tastes, to have the full sampling of the emotional spectrum, which is really unique to 3D time-space here on planet Earth. Because other dimensional realities, and there are other 3D planets that don't have the same emotional spectrum and range that we experience here. Okay? This is really unique to planet Earth. So count yourself lucky that you came to experience all this, because think of how many ways you've tasted and had a flavor of love. Think of how many ways and opportunities you've had to explore the contrast and variations of anger, of fear, of hatred maybe, okay? These are things that you get to uniquely and singularly experience here in 3D Earth space, okay? That's pretty cool. you may seem underwhelmed by it, but please don't be, because it's fucking phenomenal, okay? And you knew this. As a soul, you knew this because it was part of your soul's journey. Your soul decided to partake of this experience. It was a decision that you made. And what's even more interesting is that you knew what was going to be taking place here on planet Earth at this time, that there was going to be a major paradigm shift in this very auspicious timeline, contributing to the overall Great Earth experiment of shifting into a higher level of consciousness. We are here, we are witnessing, we are watching it happen, and we are participating in it. We are driving the needle forward on this experience by what we decide to believe in, what we decide to think, and how we decide to act on all of that every single day. This is exciting stuff, you guys. It's pretty exciting. We also knew that we'd be playing with these timelines, and that we could opt into deciding what we want to drop down into as an emotional anchor, okay? So moment to moment, we get to decide what we want to drop into as an emotional anchor any given moment to drive a timeline forward, because that is what anchors timelines. An emotional counterpart is what allows you to drop anchor into this timeline, that timeline, or whatever, okay? So the false ascension matrix, I want to get back to this. The quick and dirty version of this is that this is part of the contrast. Just as we are pursuing and have a quest for a higher spiritual destiny, which we would think of, or I call, the organic ascension timeline, meaning it aligns with our divine blueprint. It is written into the coding in our DNA to ascend into light body status. And we work through stations of awareness where we have, you may call them breakdowns, I call them breakthroughs, but they are spiritual awakenings, they are enlightening moments, and they move us into a place where we can no longer see the way we were in the same light. We can no longer look at ourselves in hindsight and say, you know, that we were shrouded in darkness. We just didn't know any better, okay? But it is all a stage of awakening. Every single moment where you feel like you're moving into a higher level of knowledge and a higher expression of who you are, it is a process of shedding all that you are not, meaning all that was aligned with false ascension. So just as there is an organic ascension timeline that is funding your way of being into higher states of reality, higher light body status all the time, you're moving towards that, you're evolving towards that, there's no final destination, it's a constant, infinite, eternal process. There is that timeline, there is that collective timeline, and we all have individual timelines that feed that. But we are in a realm, a 3D reality realm of polarity, contrast, and duality. So just as there is an organic ascension timeline, there is also a false or a shadow, a void energy ascension timeline. Looks like the organic one, smells like it, feels like it, tastes like it, but it is not. It is a mockery of it. It's an abstraction. It's a distortion, okay? And the problem is that there is plenty of energy funding, meaning plenty of attention and focus on the negative shadow aspect of this ascension timeline, which is called the false ascension matrix, okay? And it is funded by any belief that is aligned with some level of unworthiness. And we've been indoctrinated into this from the get-go, since we were tiny humans, okay? That your parents know more than you, that your priest knows more than you, that your teachers know more than you or are greater than you in some way, that God is out there and separate from you in some way. And that this constant void that's created by this is me here and this is something better or greater over there is separation, which is also a completely false construct, but one that works here in 3D because that's exactly what allows us to explore constant contrast and polarity and duality. If we didn't have this feeling of separation, we wouldn't even have a construct of contrast. We wouldn't have the construct of duality or polarity, okay? So the feeling of separation is rolled up in our, let's just say, 3D birthright, or 3D role-playing game of being able to hook into the false ascension matrix over and over and over again. If we didn't believe in separation, the false ascension matrix wouldn't work, in other words. It wouldn't even be a construct alive and well here, okay? And just think about it in terms of like the example I used a moment ago, working towards your desires, working towards some level of success, something you want to attain in your life because, why? Here you are over here, and here you are with this thing that you want, this thing you want to be, this thing you want to have, is you with it over there. Separation. Everything here in this 3D construct works on separation. But if it's a completely false construct that we keep believing in, and we keep believing in, you know, even our quest for spiritual enlightenment is based on separation, isn't it? I'm over here knowing less, being unworthy somehow, where me enlightened and awakened is over here. Separation again. It is at the foundation of everything that we buy into, that we fund energetically with our beliefs about separation and the false ascension matrix. The false ascension matrix couldn't exist without our belief and active participation in the idea of separation. Does this make sense? Are you guys following me? And what is another word for separation? Lack. Right? Want. And our days are filled with this. Lack and want. Yes? And so Distractor and Disruptor timelines are literally funded by lack and want and separation. Okay. So let me give you an example. So I want to make this as digestible as possible. Distractor, for those of you joining late, and hello everyone who's joining here. Hey Heidi. Everyone who's joining late, let me recap. So Distractor and Disruptor timelines are functions, they are mechanisms of a larger umbrella timeline called Divide and Conquer. We see how this is played out. You do not have to be a rocket scientist to see how Divide and Conquer timelines have been creating a very disruptive, very distorted, collective planetary timeline for all of us here on planet Earth. It was Donald Trump with politics. Brilliant distractor. However you feel about him as a president, I don't give a fuck. I don't care about your politics. That has no place here. Politics is tinker toys when we're talking about unity, consciousness, and elevated stations of awareness. I don't care about your politics. It doesn't make any difference to me. Donald Trump, at the end of the day, was a brilliant distractor. That is what he was here to do. He was here to shake things up, and that's exactly what Distractor and Disruptor timelines, and those are interchangeable, by the way. That's what Distractor and Disruptor timelines are meant to do. And you need a catalyst to move that timeline into motion and to anchor it. And the catalyst will always be where we drop anchor emotionally. So his brand was chaos. his brand of disruptor, distractor was to shake things up, create chaos. And he did it very, very well. Okay, no matter what you think about him as a president or a person or anything like that, at the end of the day, we must fundamentally agree on the fact that, and break it down to this, he was here as a disruptor. Some would say that he still is. Okay. This shook up, I'm trying to create words here. This shook up the status quo. It rocked the boat. And guess what needs to happen if we are to ascend into greater levels of awakening and greater levels of enlightenment? That means we have to break down, collapse, dissolve the old ways of being first, because we need to create, anytime we're creating something new, we need to create room for it to move in, okay? So a distractor and disruptor timeline is really good at breaking down whatever is pre-existing, and whether it's good or bad is really incidental, okay? but it is here to break down something that's pre-existing, that is in contrast for something that is coming in, that is new, that is about to take hold, okay? We have to have an energetic void created, in other words, if we want anything new to move in. What came before that, if it existed in contrast to this thing, then all the more reason to have this breakdown occur, so a breakthrough can happen. Does this make sense? Are you guys following me so far? Heidi says, divine timing needed this. Great. So I know this is a lot to take in. But when you are, using my earlier example, when you're striving towards something, when you are desiring something, you want to create more beneficial outcomes for yourself in your life. You have a more desirable, preferable way of being that you feel will be more satisfying, more fulfilling for you. And you are striving towards something. You are wanting something because you don't have it now. Okay? Which is working with a totally false ascension matrix of energy in order to fund what you are trying to create, by the way. We talk about this in Timelines Expanded Masterclass at length. But when you're doing that, how many times do you notice hiccups, speed bumps on your way to attaining this thing that you want? Okay. And yes, a lot of times we are our own worst enemy because we might want something, but we hold a belief, we have thought forms that are directly in opposition with that, right? And we're experiencing that inner conflict, that inner contrast, that I want more money, but I'm afraid to have more money because, oh my God, someone's going to take it from me or I'm going to lose it. And for women, this is especially hard too. And this is what I work with a lot with some of my female clients, is that having more money, yeah, we want it, we can see it, we have things in place in order to attain it and create it and bring it in. But at the end of the day, if we're holding a belief that is in opposition to that desire to want more money because we're afraid of having it, because there's this constantly looming threat and this imminent feeling of the other shoe's going to fall and somehow it's going to be taken away. I'm going to manifest a lawsuit or, you know, a car accident or tickets or a health problem or whatever. And, you know, we're constantly like grappling with this inner conflict within, and not just women, men do it too. But I think women suffer this kind of, it's a witch wound that we have, that anything that is grounded in being seen as showy wealth is a sure sign that it's going to get taken away somehow. That's how deep that wound goes, by the way. And so we'll find a way to sabotage it. So if we're having this inner conflict, okay, what happens is distractor and disruptor timelines get kicked into motion by, remember what I said, it's a catalyst of having an emotional anchor. So your fear or dread or imminent danger that you feel by having an amount of wealth that might be showy, right? Meaning you're showboating a certain amount of wealth where people can see like, ah, she has money, okay? This can create such a feeling of dread and fear in you that triggers the subconscious to create certain obstacles so that you won't have that money, okay? And disruptor timelines are the kind of thing that show up. And then you start moving into and creating a continuum of experience, meaning a linear set of events, a way of being in your life, where you are constantly in your own distractor and disruptor energy, disrupting the actual desires which come from the divine aspect of you in order to get what you want. You're literally creating ways so you cannot have it. And this is fascinating. And this is part of our, duplicitous and dualistic nature as human beings. But that's because we're relegated so much to our ego tethers that keep us feeding this 3D time-space matrix and ultimately a false ascension timeline based on lack, separation, and want. Okay? I know this is a lot, you guys. So, and I have another video that I'm going to have you watch if this really resonates with you and I explain it even more. Now that's on an individual level, okay? We have distractor and disruptor timelines that disrupt the status quo on a planetary level. Okay. Now these are different a little bit because they keep us from shifting towards, moving towards, anchoring in the higher New Earth timeline that allows humanity to evolve into unity consciousness, that allows humanity to evolve towards a more egalitarian state of being that benefits the many instead of the few. Now, at first blush, when you hear that, you might have the reaction of, well, I can already see why there can be distractor or disruptor energy to keep that from happening, because there are many people on this planet and off planet, by the way, and you'll learn that more as we talk about false ascension and false timelines in the Timelines Expanded Masterclass. There are beings, entities, whatever you want to call them, on planet and off planet, who are highly divested of our interest in moving into a higher ascension timeline, because that means that they are no longer holding the puppet strings, okay? That means that the power goes out of the hands of the few and goes into the hands of the many. This is a big no-no for those who enjoy manipulating, dominating, and controlling human consciousness and keeping us in consciousness loops where we keep exploring the same kind of contrast, the same kind of levels of separation, the same kind of levels and experiences of lack and want over and over and over again. Because this keeps us, in a way, and sorry to be so blunt about it, dead inside. This is good for those who would keep holding and manipulating those puppet strings, because if we are not awakened, if we are not enlightened, and in some ways dead inside and numb, or constantly keep numbing out to what's really going on and what's really happening, and being able to see past the reality realm that is filtered through the ego and want and separation and lack, if we start to see what's really going on beyond that, then we start paying attention big time and start making changes that fully collapse those old paradigms and old structures that would keep the hands, or the power out of the hands of the few and move it into the hands of the many. And elevate us into a higher ascension timeline. And so if we keep inside of, and we keep living our lives in this continuum of these distractor and disruptor timelines, it's like we keep experiencing all these little speed bumps, all these little distractions, all these little distortions, all these little abstractions that we experience individually as little speed bumps on having our desires met. But this is feeding into a higher collective timeline. So understand that there is no planetary timeline for this planet without every person's individuated consciousness and their personal timeline feeding it, okay? This is where it gets really convoluted. But this is what allows a higher timeline to take hold, is when our individuated consciousness and the personal timelines that we're holding, if we're holding higher personal timelines, meaning if we are living at the level of our desires, we are creating higher destinies and higher realities for us that are more beneficial, satisfying, and fulfilling every single day. We are in charge of our emotional self, meaning we are controlling how we respond to our external environment. We are actively creating a higher destiny for ourselves by what we're willing to think, what we're allowing to believe, what we're allowing ourselves to do or act behaviorally that is in accord with these higher beliefs and higher thoughts that we have about ourselves and the world at large. That's us living in our master aspects. So if there are more and more of us on an individual level living in our higher master aspects, that each person's personal timeline is creating a higher planetary destiny because of that. This is going back to what I was saying at the beginning, that your abundance matters. Your abundance benefits others. It fucking does, because it feeds your personal timeline and it weaves it into the higher organic ascension matrix. When you are living at the level of your master self, you are feeding the entire planetary collective timeline and tipping the mass consciousness because of your individual efforts of getting into your abundance, living with your desires every day. You are tipping mass consciousness towards a higher planetary destiny. And it takes, I mean, if you want a number, we need 51% of the planet, because that would be a tipping point, okay? That would be a tipping point of mass consciousness. So if 51% of the planet woke up tomorrow and decided to start living out their higher destiny by getting rid of the garbage in their head that they're unworthy, that they don't deserve love, they don't deserve money, they don't deserve anything that's aligned with abundance or prosperity, if they got rid of all that garbage out of their minds, out of their belief systems, out of their morphogenetic fields, decided, I do not have this in my field anymore. I'm not available for this shit. It's a non-negotiable. I'm done. Any contracts, oaths, agreements that I have with impoverishment, with feeling lesser than, with feeling unworthy, fuck that shit. I'm done. It's over. If 51% of the planet woke up tomorrow and did that, we would be well on our way to tipping this planetary timeline towards ascension, towards unity consciousness, and a more egalitarian way of being for the entire fucking planet. It requires a lot more work, but 51% is where we start, tipping that mass point of consciousness. Or the tipping point of mass consciousness, I should say. Does this make sense? Are we there yet? Nope. Nope. No. Could we be there? We could. We absolutely could. It's entirely within our realm of capability. It's entirely within our realm of responsibility. We are responsible. As beings who hold individuated consciousness here on this planet and are feeding or funding timelines and the collective timeline on this planet, we are 100% responsible for where the energy fucking goes. And it's high time we started believing it, living at that level of truth, because only and only when we do we start creating real change on this planet. And guess where it starts? It's easier said than done, of course, but there's that lack mentality again. Do you see how easy it is to just creep in and say, yeah, that sounds great and everything, but I'm still over here and it's over there. Your higher God self master aspect makes a decision that it is so. Is it easy? No. It's simple. I just explained it very simply. But it's not easy. Because it requires us opting out, unhooking from all of the belief systems, all of the ways you think about yourself that are creating your definition of reality and your identity of self in this moment. Your identity of self, how you define yourself in the world at large in this moment, is based on a paradigm of lack, of separation, and all the anxiety and conflict and inner chaos that comes with that. So it's an unlearning process, and that's where it goes from simple at the outset to kind of explain it. I mean, it may not seem simple as I explained it to you, but it makes it not very easy because it requires our due diligence, and it requires 100% our participation, holding ourselves to a higher standard, meaning we have to hold ourselves to a higher standard every single day about what we put in our bodies and our minds. And I'm not just talking about food. I'm not just talking about the air that we breathe. I'm talking about what are you consuming from your external environment that is feeding you or starving you. If you have a lack mentality and you are taking in what's from your external reality, something that is keeping you starving for more, wanting more, in lack or separation from what is more, please understand that that reality is mirroring what you already believe within, and it's based on the belief systems, the thought forms that you have cultivated over a lifetime. So only and ever what you are seeing in your external reality is a mirror projection and a hologram, essentially, of what you are already holding within, because there is no experience that exists outside of you. Let's just clear up that concept once and for all. There is no experience outside of you. When you say, I have an experience of this, it's not outside of you. That experience is entirely 100% within. There is no experience outside of you. Okay? And so this brings up a lot for discussion, doesn't it? Because if there is no experience outside of you, then everything that you are looking at, or you think you're looking at in your external reality, and what creates a perspective of, a vantage point of your external reality, is already fed by mechanisms within your belief systems, your thought forms, everything you've ever been told about who you are, everything that you decided to take in as nourishment that allowed you to believe in what is real, the nature of reality. But here's the thing, folks, the nature of reality is changing by the fucking second. It's changing every moment. It's changing every day. It's changing every week. It's only us on some level that is unwilling to see it, is unwilling to flow with what that means. And it is only our fear of the unknown that is keeping us from being the adventurous pioneers that we truly are. The new frontiers for us to explore, they're here, they're now. But they're not out there. They're in here. Because there's no experience that exists outside of you. And so Distractor and Disruptor Timelines are mechanisms that, in a way, are constantly vying for your attention. And any timeline can only exist to the degree that we fund it, invest in it, with our attention, our focus, our energy, our participation, in other words. Timelines cannot exist in this 3D reality realm without our participation. And our participation is paying attention to it, focusing on it, thinking about it, believing in it. That's what funds timelines. So the degree that you are still funding the idea of lack, the idea that you are, to the degree that you're still funding the idea of separation, you are keeping Distractor and Disruptor Timelines in place. Meaning you are driving that umbrella timeline of divide and conquer all the time, just by what you agree to in your energy every single day. And it may not feel good that you agree to thoughts of unworthiness, yet there it is. And there you are, agreeing to it, pushing your desires away yet again, manifesting some kind of speed bump, some sort of hindrance or obstacle to you fully claiming what's already yours, it's already created, it's already done. If you have a desire of something and you have a vision of it and you have a feeling of having it, guess what you're really looking at? You're looking at the timeline that exists where you are being, doing, having the thing. It's already existing, it's already done, it's already wrapped up, it's already created. Okay? And it's only in our fear and our lack and our separation and our consistent beliefs in those constructs that we're keeping everything that we've already created at arm's length from us. How crazy is that? Doesn't make any sense, does it? Well, yeah, this 3D reality realm doesn't make much sense. And it's all one big giant game anyway. The problem is that we've been following someone else's rules for this game that we had no say in creating, by the way. However, we keep participating in it and we keep creating more rules for ourselves around this original kind of fall from grace timeline, original cause timeline, where we separated and fragmented from who we are in our God self when we believed we were something that wasn't the God self. But how can you never not be who you are? That's impossible. And yet, we buy and sell this belief to ourselves all the time that I am not that. I am not abundant. I am not prosperous. I am not my God self creating my destiny in every single second, in every single moment, in every single thought that I have, in every single belief I decide to buy and sell to myself. It's a really fun game that we play for with ourselves. And you're not playing this game of your destiny, of claiming your desires with anything outside of you. That's the rub. You're playing this game with yourself. So anytime you think that, you know, someone else is like dangling the wire or the carrot in front of you, saying you could have it, you could have all the money, you could have all the successful careers and all the stuff. You're so close, it's right here. Anytime you think that this is an external force outside of you withholding these things from you, it never is. It's a game that you are completely and 100% participating in with yourself. And Distractor and Disruptor Timelines are the conveyance, or the vehicles, in other words, that keep us perpetually playing this game with ourselves, keeping us at arm's length from our desires and our most beneficial and higher expression of being. And on a planetary level, these Distractor and Disruptor Timelines, these are accelerating. Okay, and there's a couple reasons why they're accelerating. In Distractor and Disruptor Timelines, every timeline has a shadow representation and every timeline has a benevolent representation, okay? Because that's the nature of duality. So everything has a counterpart, okay? And it is also the law of polarity in action, okay? That to everything in the universe, there is an equal and opposite counterpart. Okay, and that's especially true here in the 3D time-space matrix because everything is about contrast and polarity and duality here. And it's a game we came to play. So in a planetary sense of Distractor and Disruptor Timelines, these are accelerating for a number of reasons, because the light codes hitting this planet are shifting us into a new paradigm, a new consciousness, a higher elevated station of awareness more rapidly, where we're experiencing it more rapidly than ever before. I want you to think about it in this way, like, think about technology, okay? If you think about, like, since the 50s, so since the 1950s, the advances in medicine, the advances in computer technology, electrical engineering, okay, electronics. Think about how accelerated that trajectory has been just since the 1950s on this planet. Like, think where we are in the fields of, like, medicine, the environmental technologies, all the things that we know now that 50 years ago we were still kind of scratching our heads about a lot of stuff. It's a really, really fast, accelerated technological advancement timeline for this planet, okay? So I want you to think about our spirituality in the same way. Our advancement of knowledge, like, Jesus Christ, when I first started doing this work, okay, because I've been doing this work for about 23, 24 years now, okay? When I think about what kind of books and texts and courses and kind of methodologies and healing modalities were available, or things that I knew about that other people were doing, and the kind of communities I was creating, you know, even before Facebook and all of that, and the people that I was, like, cultivating around me to learn certain things about spirituality and the occult, even things like that, paganism, what kind of information was available at that time, let's just say like the late 80s, early 90s, was like piddly compared to what we know now, what we're doing now. Think of how many people you know, and I know I'm talking to a community of folks here who are spiritually based, spiritually knowledgeable. Think of how many people, like on your Facebook page, in your Facebook community, who practice with the Akashic Records, with Reiki, with sacred soul alignments, with any number of healing methods and modalities that are like dizzying at this point, right? Think about that. It's accelerating very, very quickly. And the amount of awakening and enlightenment that's happening on this planet, even though sometimes we wish it would happen a lot fucking faster, it's really kind of incredible when we think about it and we like step back and look at the breadth of what has taken place just since like the late 80s, early 90s in the worlds of spiritualism and metaphysical realms, right? This is not coincidental. Nothing is. It's not random, okay? It directly is contributed to by the light codes that are hitting this planet, and the light codes hold information. They hold information on how to fulfill our divine destiny, to move into elevated stations of awareness, to move towards our light body status. And these light codes are accelerating more and more and more and more and more. And as we move into a higher spiritual destiny, as we move into a higher timeline, as we move into an elevated light station, it collapses time. It compresses timelines. And a lot of the timelines that are outmoded, outdated, they don't hold our attention and focus anymore, meaning we don't believe in those things anymore. We don't fund certain timelines of lack, separation, ego with our attention and energy that we give it anymore. Those things will naturally collapse, but the light codes hitting this planet, moving our trajectory forward in this new earth towards a higher destiny, are naturally collapsing those timelines, compressing those timelines as well. This will give us the psychological or felt sense of time that things are accelerating, that things are moving forward very rapidly. But here's the rub. As human beings, we're working with really old hardware, okay? Our brains are wired in a very ancient way. This is changing all the time. Our neurological pathways are changing. They are upgrading, but they're a little slow on the uptake, okay? And it's powered mostly by our very stubborn and consistent ways of believing about the nature of reality and believing that we are lesser than, believing we're not capable of great change, believing we're not capable, as Heidi said, sorry to call you out, that easier said than done. We keep buying into these old belief systems that we are lesser than, that we're not powerful, that it's too hard, that we have to suffer too much, that we have to struggle too much in order to make change, so let's numb out and do something fucking else because that's too difficult. So guess what's keeping that ancient hardware here totally in place? Sorry, Heidi. I just wanted to, I had to do it. I had to do it. Much love and mad respect. You know that. But do you understand that we are the only ones, and kind of acting as our own worst enemies here, that are keeping us in the dark ages? Meanwhile, the trajectory of this planet is going fucking balls out, pardon my French, and ushering us into and inviting us into ever increasing and more beneficial outcomes and ways of being, and we're just like, nah, sounds like a lot of work, sounds like that'll never really happen. And are we really, you know, there's a lot of fucked up people on this planet. I don't know if I want those people going along for the ride. I don't know if I really, you know, I was in the grocery store today and I was looking around and I was just like, who the fuck are these people? Oh my God. Really? Do I want to ascend with these people? Ugh. I mean, I'm trying to lighten it up here, right? But this is a lot of times, this is our inner monologue, yeah? But here's the thing. It's only the awakened ones, it's only the enlightened ones who are going to be on this ascension ride. There are a lot of people on this planet who are not willing, who don't know about ascension, are not willing to ascend. Maybe they understand it or kind of grasp at some of the concepts and can kind of relate somehow, but they're like, nah. And there are also, and we've talked about this many times in some of my other courses, you know, we're all, at the end of the day, folks, we're all part of the same team. It doesn't feel that way because, again, we're here to play with contrast, polarity, and duality here. There are players role players, and we're all role players here. And we get to change our role. That's what's exciting, is that we've always had the power to change our role in this game that we're playing. We just don't think, or we feel like it's too hard or too much of a struggle, or it's not worth it, or what am I doing? Like, I'm just going to call it in. I don't even care anymore. You know, I'll just live my life. I'll pay my bills. This is probably all there is to it. And I'll just fucking live life. And I'm done. And then I'll be done. Boy, are you going to be surprised. Sorry. That's not what it is. We're all playing this same game, and some of us have chosen different roles. And sometimes we look around and we see, you know, other kids on the playground here on planet Earth, and we're like, you're not a good person. And you're responsible for horrific things. Everyone is here playing a role. And this is hard for some of you to hear, but I really need you to hear it, because without grasping at even being in the light of higher spiritual truths, when we keep pushing that away, we lose our ability to ascend. We lose our ability to elevate into higher consciousness. So even if you don't completely believe what I'm saying, at least hear it. And I invite you to hear it from here instead of here. Everyone here, this great experiment, this playground of planet Earth, is playing a role. A role that was chosen, selected, whatever. And some of us have chosen, or were selected to play the role of the villain. Some of us were chosen or selected to play the role of the master, or the spiritually enlightened, or the way shower, or the light bearer, or the healer. Okay? Some of us were chosen to just be impartial and to be neutral and to kind of watch things play out. But everyone has their role here to play. And it doesn't necessarily make them good or bad. That's our perspective on it. Okay? And again, feeds the duality matrix of 3D time-space. There are many people on this planet who are choosing to live at a level where we would perceive them as being bad, being the villain, being the distractor, being the clown, being the perpetuator of horrors. Okay? It is so that we can experience duality, polarity, and contrast on this planet. So some of those souls, because they're all souls at the end of the day, and we can culminate and wrap up this entire 3D time-space reality. We go back to the light. We're all the same. We're all equal. We're all unified. We're all part of the same tapestry. We're all part of the same thread. But here in the 3D time-space and the reality realm that we're exploring contrast in, we will perceive some as other. I would never do that. That's horrific. It is so that we can keep playing this game of contrast and polarity and duality. And it is there, it is in place so that we can keep choosing higher and better outcomes. And some of those souls have decided to take one for Team Galactic, Team Universal Energy Matrix, decided to take one for the team to come here and play the villain at this time. So that we could look at them and say, I will not be that, I will choose higher. I know that's a lot to take in. And I struggled with this the first time I heard it, but the first time I heard it was many years ago, and I've worked through this, and I've played with this, and worked through a lot of timelines where I've seen this, and I've asked to have it played out in other dimensional realms where I could see it as well. It's a truth bomb, to use Heidi's words. So the Distractor and Disruptor Timelines. I know I keep going off on different tangents, and I'm sorry about that, but there's so much to break off and talk about here. But these are timelines that we keep participating in so that we can keep playing the game of lack, duality, contrast, separation, want. They're just conveyances of energy, because that's all timelines are. They are conveyances, they are vehicles of energy, where we can play out a certain continuum, a certain role play, a way of being, and have that experience. Okay? But at any given time, and this is our power, I want you to listen closely, at any given time, we can opt out and unhook from any unfavorable timelines. And we deem them unfavorable because we get to say, I no longer agree to hook into, participate in, fund a timeline that is lesser than me feeling wholesome, me feeling complete. Because you're never not whole, you are never not complete. But in this 3D reality play, we play with the contrast of not feeling complete, not feeling whole. Hello lack, hello separation, hello want, right? And it's a game you are playing with yourself. Now, just as Distractor and Disruptor Timelines have a negative or shadow connotation, they can also have a positive aspect and benevolent connotation. How do you work with that? Because at the end of the day, it's all energy. So a Distractor Disruptor Timeline, because it exists here in 3D, if you know that there is anything here that exists in 3D, it has a counterpart. It has a shadow aspect and it has a benevolent or positive aspect. So how do you work with positive Distractor and Disruptor Timelines? Well, let's look at the Planetary Timeline. The Planetary Timeline, which is one massive divide and conquer timeline at the moment, that, okay, last year it was politics, and we were at each other's throats with the politics. Some of us still are. And, then it was COVID, and we got to be at each other's throats and experience contrast, polarity, and duality because of our beliefs about health, and beliefs about medicine, and beliefs about vaccines, and all these other things. More opportunities to be in divide and conquer. And those of us who would like to see the false ascension matrix keep its hooks in all of us here on planet Earth and keep us in those consciousness loops where we keep exploring lack and contrast and polarity and duality and less than beneficial outcomes for everyone and keep us at odds with each other, keep us at each other's throats. They're loving it. They're loving it because we get to stay confused. We get to stay chaotic. And anywhere there is confusion and chaos, there isn't unity. So the longer we stay anything less than unified, the easier we are to dominate, manipulate, and control. Now, as a planetary collective, we can see how we're at each other's throats, but here's the thing. That can't work as a planetary collective unless we have chaos, division, incoherence, incongruence, anything less than unity within. Because as within, so without. And as we've learned, there is no experience that exists outside of you. So if you're constantly experiencing division, divide and conquer type energies without, you can bet dollars to donuts that you have that going on inside you. Let me ask you this. Let's make it real simple. Are you living inside of your desires? Are you creating a life every single day where you're going to bed at night and you feel satisfied and fulfilled, saying, I created this today for myself and it is totally aligned with my desires, my higher destiny, my higher expression of who I think of as me and my master aspect. I'm living at this level of me every single day. Awesome. Good on you, Kath. Awesome. You can go to bed, sleep well, wake up, and get up tomorrow and kick ass and do more of the same. How many of you are living that way every day? So there is incongruence. There is incoherence. There is disparity of belief and duality of belief and thought and action living right inside you. Okay? Now, it may not be that you wake up in the morning and you have a desire and you fulfill that by the end of the day. And that's okay. Because we understand that there is a buffer of time here. There isn't instant manifestation, although there can be sometimes. But more often, it takes some time behind the scenes for the universe to conspire and co-create on our behalf to allow certain outcomes to land into density in physical 3D form, because it is a denser level, so we have the buffer of time here between our desires and our experiences, okay? That's just the nature of 3D time-space. But we have breadcrumbs along the way. We know we're on the right path. We have messages from the universe. We have symmetry. We have synchronicity. These are the clues and the cues that allow us to know that we're living inside of our desires and that we are living a way of life that feels in alignment with what we're desiring to create every day, right? And then the outcomes show up and corroborate that and validate that, although oftentimes show up in the way that we hadn't envisioned them, sometimes and oftentimes much better, right? So you as a agent exercising distractor or disruptor timelines on a planetary level, where the divide and conquer timeline is very pervasive, it's very, very effectual at the moment in keeping us at odds with each other and keeping us at odds with our higher destiny of moving into unity consciousness. How can you use distractor and disruptor timelines to benefit yourself and the entirety of the planet? You living as your master aspect every day, opting into higher beliefs about yourself, higher beliefs about the world, higher beliefs about that people, those people or persons that you're judging in the supermarket, at the grocery store. If you're deciding to change how you feel or how you are judging your reality, judging others, judging yourself, judging your environment, judging the world at large, you changing that and choosing a higher expression, meaning moving away from judgment and moving into acceptance, moving into compassionate witness energy, that is you using distractor and disruptor energy to blow apart and collapse the overall divide and conquer timeline in the planetary collective. That's how you do it. But a lot of us aren't willing to be a distractor and disruptor. A lot of us aren't willing to let go of a certain identity that we've created for ourselves that has been created out of a paradigm and structure and belief system based on lack. Because of the very real fear, who am I without this? And we need to address the elephant in the room, that many of us are tethered to an identity of self, a definition of self that is based on a paradigm of lack. Who are we without that? Who are we without the blanket of support of having discounting and diminishing thoughts about ourselves every day? If we're habituated to that, and to a certain degree on an electrochemical impulse level, meaning our body's chemistry becomes addicted to that. If you don't believe me, read Dr. Joe Dispenza. We become addicted to whatever we are habituated to in our beliefs, because it sets off a cascade response, an electrochemical response in the body that says, this is good, this is me, this is familiar, this is sensory input that allows me to know who I am. And a lot of us know who we are based on what we happen to be currently lacking, based on what we don't have. And until we let that go, we can't fully anchor into being a distractor and disruptor, meaning acting as a higher agent, acting in our master aspect every day, thinking better thoughts about ourselves, thinking better thoughts about our neighbor, thinking better thoughts about the person in line in front of us in the mail, in the post office, or in the grocery store. Thinking better thoughts about the world at large, thinking better thoughts about the destiny of this planet, being able to fund a higher timeline for this planet by choosing to focus and put your awareness and attention on the things that are happening that are good. Instead, think of how many distractor and disruptor timelines you are privy to every single day. The news is one big highlight reel of fucking distractor and disruptor timelines. Most of what's in social media, whether you're listening to the news on the radio, watching the news on TV, okay? Or you still read newspapers or magazines or whatever, okay? Where you are opting into conversation with others and commiserating about the state of affairs of the world, you are directly and energetically funding divide and conquer timelines with what you're talking about. And I'm not asking you to be Pollyanna and just say, la, 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 nothing bad is happening in the world. It's important to understand that you are a complex being that can be aware of a lot of fucked up shit in the world and be fully tapped into the things that are not wholesome and know the things that aren't good, and decide still, and in light of that and in spite of that, to fund your energetic potential elsewhere. And in fact, as humans, we hold all that power. Because here's the thing. Humans are the keepers of 3D. Every dimensional realm has keepers. Humans are the keepers of 3D. So while there might be players on and off planet that do not have the highest and best intentions for you individually or us collectively, these are things that are introduced here as ways of being. Call them Disruptor Timelines, call them false ascension machinery, call divide and conquer timelines part of that. Yes, but it is only through our active participation, our attention, our focus, our awareness, what we invest in with our energetic potential, that we decide, yes, we decide what stays and what goes here in 3D. And we've collectively decided that what stays here is lack. We've collectively decided that what stays here is fear. Why? Because we keep funding it with our attention, our focus. We sensationalize fear. We love it. Think of how many horror movies. I'm always like stricken with awe at how many horror movies there are. Like since the end of 2019, there's been like way more horror movies than romantic comedies or just like bust up stupid comedies like your Will Ferrell stupid comedy or stuff like that. A lot of real world dramas that have horrors of their own because they're based on truth, based on actual events. Again, not coincidence. Because this is what the collective timeline and the collective or the mass tipping point of consciousness is focusing on. Fear, horror, dread, threats, the imminent other shoe that's going to fall, right? And it's like we're constantly biding our time and waiting for it. This is getting us fucking nowhere, nowhere. Meanwhile, there are light codes hitting this planet saying, all right, it's all here, guys. This magic carpet ride, it's happening. You can jump on this at any time, but there are things that you are going to have to divest yourself of. There's things that you're going to have to unhook from, collapse, dissolve, stop believing in, stop funding with your attention, your focus, your energy, and your awareness in order to do that, because we always have to give up something energetically. Okay? And especially if it is in direct opposition and in direct odds to what we're trying to create. And if we're trying to create love, you're going to have to give up fear. And a lot of us aren't willing to do that. And a lot of us are addicted to it. Okay? And look at our entertainment industry. It thrives on it. The Marvel Universe stuff, hello? Someone coming to save us? Someone with human but not human-like qualities coming to save us and rescue us from ourselves? This is a theme, okay? Where we constantly push the responsibility and the accountability out somewhere else, and we kind of fantasize and we glorify these ideas that someone is going to swoop down and rescue us and save us from ourselves. No. You are the rescue and the savior that you're looking for. Sarah says, some days, yeah, I just wonder about people, but I remind myself we are all on different journeys, and some days I don't feel very awakened either. And that's natural, because again, it's the nature of our dualistic experience here. But we don't have to beat ourselves up about it. Because every day is a fresh, clean slate, isn't it? Every day offers fresh perspective. There is no obligation for you to wake up tomorrow and be the same person that you were yesterday. You are under no obligation. You are under no contract, no oath, no agreement. Those are constructs that you get to decide as a free, sovereign, God self agent of the universe to opt out of, negate. If you believe yourself to be holding contracts of lack and fear, perhaps rollovers from other lifetimes, potential timelines, guess what? Everything is now. So it's not some past thing that's gone and done. It's a timeline you're exploring now. It's just that your focus and attention and awareness happens to be funded in this now dominant timeline where I'm talking and you're listening and you're living your life. You're doing your thing. So you could be exploring a contract of lack, self-denial in any way, shape, or form in another timeline, but you are under no obligation to keep that contract. And I have a sovereignty statement that I'll share with you here. So I invite you to think about these culmination timelines. These distractor and disruptor timelines, because they are moving into culmination timelines. Now, culmination timelines is a wrap-up. Culmination or compression timelines are what I touched on here a little bit earlier, that as we move into higher light codes for the planet, we are being ushered into higher potentials and ways of being that move us into unity consciousness, okay? Move us into higher states of love, of being compassionate witnesses for each other, of holding space and light and love for each other. This is happening, this is here, it's now. We just haven't tipped mass consciousness towards this point of awareness yet. But it's there, it's happening. It's not some lofty pie-in-the-sky ideal. It's fucking here. But we have to make the inner decision from a master God self, sovereign, free will being, that it is so. It's something we decide, okay? And then act upon as if it is so. All right? So your mission, should you choose to accept, to use distractor and disruptor timelines that have been currently used to thwart your progress towards ascension, you can use them too, because you are a keeper of 3D and you are in control of what comes and goes here in this 3D reality realm. You can use distractor and disruptor timelines to disrupt the overall divide and conquer planetary timeline that's keeping us at odds with each other, that's keeping us out of compassionate witness energy with each other. Will you do this? Try to think 3 better thoughts about yourself every day. Just don't even try, just do. As Yoda says, there is no try, there is only do. So be your own inner Yoda and commit to think, write them down right now. What are 3 better thoughts that you would like to think about yourself? That you want 100% to be true? Write them down right now. And then the rest of this week, put an alarm on your phone. The best thing about having an Apple Watch, which I don't have on right now, which I should, is you can program reminders into your phone. I do this in my iPhone as well. I program reminders to think a better thought. You could call it an affirmation. You could call it an affirmation, which is an affirmation in the form of a question. Why am I so blessed? That's an easy one. And what does it allow you to do when you think these better thoughts about yourself? It redirects and pattern interrupts, because that's all distractor and disruptor timelines are. They are pattern interrupts. So you can create your own pattern interrupt for the greater collective timeline by starting to think better thoughts about yourself, because that's where it starts. How do we anchor anything in the collective? It has to be individual efforts first. It has to be. There's no other way. So what can you do right now to move towards that higher destiny? Think 3 better thoughts about yourself every single day. This is you acting as your master. This is you and your master aspect acting on your highest and most benevolent behalf and taking actions based on the truth that you are more. You are more than enough. You are God in a body. You are love in a body. You are never not all that which you are, which is your God self. You just believe yourself to be separate from it, okay? And so when you think these better thoughts about yourself, you are creating a pattern interrupt. Where before you would have thought, oh, fuck, I'm so stupid, or I fucking did that again. Why can't I get my shit together? You keep funding that divide and conquer timeline because you're at odds with yourself within. So how do you pattern interrupt a divide and conquer planetary timeline? You start right where you are right now by thinking better thoughts about yourself, creating unity within, because we cannot have unity without unless there is unity within. Do you get it? Good. So, what are those 3 better thoughts? Let's have it. Why am I so blessed? It allows you to look at the things that are going right. And whenever you do that, you are focused on abundance. You are focused on prosperity. You are focused on a timeline of wealth and well-being and prosperity. Okay? What is it? Sarah, give me one. Heidi, give me one. Anybody who's still here? What is one, just one, share it with me, a higher thought you are willing to think about yourself? Because it ain't just about you, folks. Your abundance matters, and your abundance benefits others. It benefits the collective. And it's got to start with you, right? Why am I so blessed? There you go. There's one. Focus on what is going right and create those higher thoughts for yourself around that. Okay? We have an opportunity to accelerate. I am energized. Beautiful. I love that. That's gorgeous. Heather, thank you for sharing that. So I have an opportunity coming up on the 12th of December. So 12/12 is a culmination portal. And those of you who don't know what a culmination portal is, it is a compressing of the year's timelines of collapsing energetic potentials that are outlived, outmoded, outdated. They're not supporting the highest, most beneficial timeline for ourselves individually and our planetary collective. And we have an opportunity to do an energetic clearing and compress and collapse these culminating potentials so that we can clear out the portal of energy of 2021 and start with a fresh, clean template of energy for 2022. And 12/12 is a culmination portal, which is really very exciting, actually. So I have an opportunity for you to take part in this clearing. So we've seen a lot of heightened contrast between the you that you have settled for, and hopefully you've seen this in high contrast and high relief in this conversation, in this masterclass here today, but you see the you that you have settled for and how that lives in contrast to the you that you are desiring to create, okay? You desiring to reinvent yourself, redefine your reality based on, you know, whatever your new specifications are for self-development and self-improvement, right? And there's always these little roadblocks, these little hindrances, and they're created from within, and it allows you to explore your own distractor and disruptor timelines. There's some shit that you are aware of now that's just a hard no for you going forward. It's a hard no for you in your individual experience of life, and it's a hard no for when you look out at what's happening in the world and you're like, this can't go on. This can't go on. This continued divide and conquer dynamic, it's killing us, right? So these hard no's going forward in your life, there's little room left for making yourself available anymore for things that aren't benefiting you directly, aren't benefiting the collective directly, right? And so a lot of these distractions are keeping us from our dominant ambition of moving towards a higher destiny individually and collectively. So these disruptor and distractor timelines are part of Culmination Timelines. They're part of the 2021 portal of energy that we think of as a year. Okay, this timeline of a year. It's time to collapse a lot of outmoded, outdated, undesirable levels of contrast. There are things that we just keep exploring throughout this year that we're done with, meaning that there's nothing left to learn there. So we can download and complete the lesson, close out that energy, collapse those energetic potentials that are funding anything less than our higher expression, so that we can open up an energetic potential that allows us to move into a higher expression, allows us to move into our abundance, that allows us to move into prosperity, that allows us to move into well-being, not just for ourselves, but for all. This has always been our destiny. This is the master timeline of this planet that we are here to pursue. And you wouldn't have been born here in this auspicious timeline on planet Earth if you weren't meant to participate in this and fund its occurrence. Money, why is money always coming into me? I love that, Teresa. Beautiful. So you're not imagining these distractions, these disruptions, these abstractions. They're real in terms of how real the 3D time-space matrix is and our belief systems in funding the reality of them. And it's our imperative now to collapse this perceived reality, to wrap up, to close out, and to mark null and void the old energy and anchor in the new. So on this culmination portal on 12/12, I'm going to be leading a very powerful energetic clearing. If you haven't joined me in energy clearings before, especially around timelines, I want to invite you to this. It's very, very potent. I invite you to think about what you want to collapse individually in your own personal timeline that's not aligned with your highest and best ambition for yourself, and also what you would like to collapse on a planetary level, okay? So the number 12 is really, really important, very important. It's a highly significant number throughout history here in 3D reality. We're only beginning to understand in the 3D reality realm how important the number 12 is. But it's beyond, it has an expression because math is the universal language. So the number 12 has an expression, it has a meaning, it has a use and a purpose way beyond our 3D time-space reality, and it opens a gateway to 12th dimensional consciousness. The number 12 also resonates with the higher vibration of base 12 math. Base 12 math is the foundation for the organic ascension matrix. Base 10 math is the foundation for the false ascension matrix. So it's actually, yes, built on math. You also learn this in Timelines Expanded Masterclass. But we're going to work with this base 12 energy in this culmination portal to bring in free, untainted energy matrices that fund organically the process of ascension as it was always meant to be in alignment with our divine birthright. And so all this energy that's wrapping up, it's inviting you to look at the incongruent, incoherent energy within, where you don't have unity within you, meaning your beliefs and feelings about yourself and thoughts about yourself are at odds with what you want. You don't have unity within, okay? Let's clear this up, okay? Let's bring you into full alignment and fully online with the year of 2022 and the organic potentials of your divine destiny. Let's do that, okay? So this is going to be a massive shift. This is going to be a big energetic portal and a lot of energy. There's a lot of people who want to join. So on Wednesday, I'm going to be making an official announcement, and there'll be an official PayPal sign up. It'll be $12 for this event. It is going to be on Zoom because it needs to be off of Facebook. And there will be a recorded replay. So it is going to be at noon on 12/12, noon Pacific time. If you can't make that, it's perfectly all right. You will have the replay, and when you opt in with your $12 payment, you will have a place to view the replay in my Member Vault Academy. This is my online academy of all my online programs, all my paid programs and free stuff. So you'll have it in there and you'll have lifetime access to it. And you can listen to this more than once to close out timelines. You can listen to it on the 31st of December and fully close out the year of 2021. And it'll have the same and actually expanded effect, because when you listen to this more than once, it resonates, it peels away more layers, and collapses more timelines and potentials. I am burping a lot. I'm so sorry. When I do these talks, I channel a lot, and it's a lot of clearing, and I remove a lot of stuff from my body. So I'm burping a lot, excuse me. So I invite you to embrace the power of this massive shift and join us. Tevi, great. I will make sure I add you to the list. And on Wednesday, when I make the official announcement and put the link in, I'll make sure to tag everyone who originally opted in and said they want to be part of this event. So if you want to reserve your spot, you can also put your name here, put your hand up like Tevi did, and let me know, and I'll make sure that I add you in the loop for this. Masterclass is starting on the 11th of January. This is a 12-module, 12-week program. We're going to be meeting on Tuesdays for 12 weeks. We'll have a break, a bye week in between that after week 6. But this is a one-of-a-kind, singularly unique program. There is no one else out there teaching this level, this content, this spiritually advanced material in this way, in a way that it's coherent, practical, applicable. I don't just talk at you about time and timelines and how humans create time and timelines in 3D. There are practical and tangible applications for this that I walk you through in this. And as a bonus module, those of you who are healing practitioners, you are energy practitioners, there is a module devoted exclusively to you so that you can learn how to teach timeline healing and weave this into the already amazing work that you do as an energy healer, or with any kind of method or modality that you share and teach. Timeline healing works with all of it, and it actually accelerates and amplifies and magnifies the results of the already amazing work that you're doing. So that's Timelines Expanded Masterclass. I have just added a fee-free weekly payment plan that you can pay over 6 weeks for this program. I think it ends up being $186 each week for 6 weeks. And you're not paying any interest on it. You're not paying any fees, because there are fees over a payment plan because I get dinged for every transaction that I have as a sales for my business. And it's a lot. And so, I don't feel that I have to take that on when I offer a payment plan, because that's a courtesy. However, this is a interest-free, fee-free payment plan where you pay $186 each week for 6 weeks. So I've just added that on for those of you who, because there are a lot of you who said, I really want to take part in this, but I can't really do it. There's your way to do it. And I've often found that people who are really aligned with this program and want to get in on it, the way shows up. They just declare, like, it is so. I'm getting in this program. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to get in this program and I'm going to do it. And so the money shows up. It just happens. It's one of those things. That's happened for a lot of people who have joined Timelines Expanded Masterclass, actually. So this is a really dynamic, one-of-a-kind program. I invite you to join us. So thank you for being here and being open in your hearts and your minds today and taking in this material. It's just been fantastic to share this with you. And I will put the link in for exploring the contrast. Actually, I can do it right now. I have it right here. I'm talking a little bit more, and this is a shorter talk than what we experienced today, but exploring the contrast of Distractor and Disruptor Timelines. So let me just throw that link in here before I close out. It is a YouTube video. There you go. Thank you so much, you guys. Lots of love and peace. Bye-bye.